Hi and welcome to the Geek Legion of Doom. This is the B-movie review and I'll be having a look at The Mooring. Now before I get started, I have to say this review is going to be slightly spoilery, so if you've not seen the film and want to kind of watch it without being spoiled, don't watch this review and come back to me later. Still here? So The Mooring starts with actually a prologue where we see a young girl getting kidnapped from a sort of campsite along the river by some kind of guy. We assume he's kind of some sort of local hick or something. After that, we cut to kind of modern times, and there's a group of sort of girls who basically have got to the point where they're relying too much on technology, specifically telecommunications, and they have to go on kind of almost like a summer camp trip on a boat to try and sort of get away from their addiction from things like, you know, Facebook and social networking and phones. And there's a variety of we're given a variety of different scenarios about why these girls need to sort of get away from it. I believe there's 9 girls in total, and plus there's kind of one sort of, I guess, teacher type. And they kind of go on this boat trip with I guess the idea to sort of try and get them away from their sort of addictions to a lot of technology and stuff like that. And there's also a good excuse, obviously, why we don't have phones in this film. So these girls basically kind of end up getting stalked by this sort of couple, this kind of like backwaters couple almost. However, that's a good sort of 40 minutes into the actual plot. So it's a little bit of a slow start. You know, you build up a lot of character. The first sort of 40 minutes, I say, is really just building the characters, and you get to know these sort of girls. But there's quite a large cast. And I've got to be honest with you. One of the sort of criticisms with this one, where it is such a large class of sort of these teenage girls, and they are teenagers. This is not one of those films where you have these sort of older actors playing young girls. These are all, you know, youngish girls, you know, playing obviously their own age group, which is quite good. But I have to say, when I was watching the film, I was kind of getting a little bit mixed up who was who and which ones were which ones were sort of still alive and which ones were getting picked off, because it was such a large cast, and a lot of it is sort of in the night. To be honest with you, they look fairly similar. They're all around the same age. They're all white. They've all got kind of long hair. So sometimes it's a little bit difficult to tell who's who. Anyway, so that's just a side note. So basically, these two kind of hicks turn up on the boat, and they're kind of docked because one of the boats having kind of like some sort of mechanical troubles, and we get the impression that there's something not quite right there. The kind of this supervisor when tries to kind of take the boat back to get some repairs, and basically this is when these two sort of backwards characters obviously try and sort of track down the girls and essentially hunt them and kill them. What's the film like? So it's obviously a kind of horror film, but it's not a gory film really at all. If you're a seeker of like explicit gore and death things and stuff like that, then you're not going to find it here. Now I get the idea that the reason for that obviously is because basically the kind of the victims, if you like, are all going to be young teenage girls. So it's a bit. I know there are certain restrictions showing violence towards women and to, you know, children. So obviously that's what these are. So that's possibly why they've chosen to kind of almost steer clear from the sort of explicit gore and things like that. Nonetheless, it is still quite harrowing. We do see some death scenes kind of from sort of a quiet distance and things like that. And it does make it, you know, fairly harrowing, I've got to say, to a certain degree. Now, it's an interesting film. I don't think it's a particularly original film, if I'm completely honest with you. It has a kind of, I guess, a clever idea. Now, so this is going to be a little bit spoilery. Now, obviously, we see in the prologue that this guy's pretty much on his own, and yet in the kind of modern times, he's with a female. So obviously, you know, the actual woman that's with him is the girl who got kind of kidnapped in the prologue. And I didn't really understand the guy's motivations, if I'm completely honest. I didn't know why he just decided to sort of kill random sort of like girls. There was no real explanation than that, and it's one of those sort of things where it's a little bit convenient that these girls who happen to have this sort of reliance on technology and decide to leave it all behind happen to sort of not rock up to these sort of psychos who, you know, want to kill young girls. So stuff like that. So it's kind of a little bit of a sort of coincidence situation here. And like I said, the guy's motivation to me wasn't maybe as clear as it could have been. I'm guessing that I think what the idea is, he's basically wanting to sort of replace the girl that he almost kidnapped earlier on, because he pretty much focuses on kind of one specific girl, whilst the rest of them he kind of wants to kill. But it's not really explicitly said, so it's kind of, it gets a little bit confusing. The other thing as well, because it focuses on the ensemble rather than a kind of particular sort of protagonist out the girls, you don't really know kind of almost who to root for. And again, this just goes back to what I was saying before. Kind of you kind of get a little bit muddled up with who these characters are and which ones are sort of which ones are which. So you know, it was a pretty decent effort. As I say, it was one of those films that, you know, it does make things bloody hell. You know, it's kind of a little bit shocking, a little bit harrowing. I think maybe continuity issues as well. One scene, for example, these girls are trying to sort of get away from this couple, and they kind of rappel down this sort of large cliff to sort of get away from them. So to try and stop them, these guys cut the line. They cut the line at the sort of top. So they're at the top of this sort of cliff, and these sort of girls are at the bottom, and then sort of try and get away. And yet the next scene, the bloke is literally only a few metres behind them. But overall, it was, you know, it was a decent sort of psychological sort of thriller, really, rather than the horror. So I'm going to give this one a 5 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment. I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.